George Anderson, you are the son of Ted Anderson, who was the mayor of the town we both came from, and you yourself was its police chief before you were sent here for an act of attempted arson. So, why have you asked to speak to the press now?
After I was convicted of that crime, my father made an appearance on the Rush Scumpa show. He claimed my act was entirely my own, but that's not true. Everything I did as police chief was to support my father. He repeatedly told me and others he wanted us to get rid of the Sims lesbian couple and their daughters, along with Sandy Smith and her children. Burning down the Tuscany Tavern was all about that. I was so loyal to my father, and in turn he throws me under the bus.
Plausible deniability is something many politicians who are involved in scandals may benefit from. But you said there was more to reveal.
That's right. You are probably aware that about 3 years after my father first became mayor, our town's water supply became contaminated because its sewage treatment system failed.
Yes. Because your father stopped funding for the system.
True, but also because I sabotaged the system. My father ordered me to do that.
What? Why would he do such a crazy thing?
Because my father is a friend of Leonard Wilson, who was a co-owner of the local hospital. Mr. Wilson said that he wanted to increase profits for the hospital.
Oh my God. Leonard Wilson is the father of Ted Wilson. By the way, he is no longer involved with the hospital, but his brother Simon is. Could Simon have also been involved in this conspiracy?
I can't confirm that. I just know what I was told and what I was ordered to do. My father constantly demanded loyalty to him, but when it came time for him to support me, he backstabbed me instead. And he never visits me in prison either.
Thank you for your statement. Jason then calls Carrie with this news. And Carrie is furious, so the following day she goes to confront Simon Wilson about it at the school.
Do I have to explain to you how outrageous this situation is? People died because of tap water being contaminated. If you were involved, you belong in prison.
I swear, I knew nothing about it. My brother was much more involved in running the hospital than I was, because of my work here at the school. Just because my brother is a greedy backstabber doesn't make me one.
Indeed, your willingness in the past to allow us to discipline your nephew when he was causing trouble here is a sign of your integrity. Officer Sims, you will need actual evidence against Simon Wilson before I can fire him from the school.
Speaking of evidence, I am willing to allow Officer Sims to look at the hospital records to try to confirm George Anderson's story. If the sewage treatment system was indeed sabotaged and didn't merely break down, then the number of patients being treated for waterborne illnesses would immediately skyrocket and wouldn't increase gradually. And so Carrie gets a search warrant, and then she and the other members of the town's police force conduct an analysis of the hospital records. And within a week.
As you can see, hospitalizations due to contaminated water increased tenfold in a few months after the time George Anderson said he was ordered to sabotage the town's water supply. And they remained high until Sandy Smith had the sewage treatment plant fixed. It seems everything Ted Anderson did when he was mayor before me was about promoting business interests. Contaminated tap water increased business for the hospital and also increased sales of bottled water. And neglecting the road increased business for tire and auto repair companies.
But how many people died because of this? How many were bankrupted? How many lives were ruined just because a few people already powerful around here wanted to be even more powerful? It seems most of the leading citizens of this town I used to admire, like Reverend Dave Owen, Ted Anderson, and Leonard Wilson, betrayed the rest of us for the sake of profit. Reverend Owen was part owner of the hospital too, by the way, so he also benefited from this scandal.
Indeed he was.
I guess I was wrong to just focus on teaching science and trust my brother to do most of the overseeing of the hospital's finances. I wonder if I should resign as my school science teacher and withdraw from the mayor's race too.
That's something you need to discuss with Mr. Hernandez. But in the meantime, we should certainly go after Ted Anderson and Leonard Wilson for what they have done. We will make them pay. Literally. Yes. A massive lawsuit against those two is what we need. And I will file it. About a month after I, Carrie, and Lucy first moved to this town, Carrie got sick. She was vomiting constantly and couldn't even hold water down. We had to take her to the hospital and she had to have an IV put in her arm to get hydration and nutrients until her stomach could recover and function normally again. My mother sent us a water filter which we attached to our kitchen faucet, and after that Carrie never got sick again. Do you still have the records of the hospital stay and how much it cost? Yes. I will bring those records to you. Good. Once I have that information, I will file my lawsuit against Ted Anderson and Leonard Wilson with Carrie as a co-plaintiff. By making this lawsuit personal and not just an issue of bad tap water hurting the townspeople in general, we can gain more sympathy from a jury. I can't wait to face those bastards in court and tell what happened to me. Indeed, Carrie was one of the first people we know of who got sick from drinking the town's water supply. Jessica and I had assumed we were an isolated incident, until we learned from Dr. Drake during your mayoral campaign that many people were also getting sick from the same issue that almost killed Carrie. So far, the witness list includes George Anderson, Carrie, Dr. Drake, and Simon Wilson. I will ask Simon and Whitney Owen to provide a list of all the people who were treated for waterborne illnesses at the hospital. Then I will contact them and ask for their statements too. If we win our lawsuit, they will be entitled to compensation.
Jason and Olivia Laker, in cooperation with Simon Wilson, Charlie Wilson, Dr. Drake and Whitney Owen, have been combing through hospital records and interviewing witnesses that suffered because of contaminated tap water many years ago. So now we have more than a dozen witnesses that are willing to testify to what happened to them because of George Anderson's act of sabotage, along with Carrie's original statement. These are more than enough to move forward with the lawsuit.
Yes, but because Carrie was the first victim that came forward, and she was also the earliest we know of, and she came so close to death, her name will be on top of the plaintiff list, right? That's what Sandy told me.
Maybe I'm not to blame for what happened, but it is clear that I should have been paying better attention to what was going on at this hospital. Your grandfather forced me into being a co-owner of the hospital, but teaching science was my passion. Your uncle said he would take care of everything to make sure the hospital would be run well without my input. And I trusted him. I was such an idiot. Father, I don't think anyone anticipated he would do something like this. But now we can make things right and then we can make sure something like this never happens again. I don't think suing them is enough. Shouldn't they be facing criminal charges? Isn't destruction of public property a felony that can give you a hard time? Criminal trials are a lot tougher to prove than civil ones, so we need to make sure the civil trial goes through before we can have my brother and Ted Anderson arrested and imprisoned for what they did. We can't rush this. We have to make sure all our I's are dotted and all our T's are crossed, so to speak.
Unfortunately, he's right. Plus, we know that no matter what we do, the right-wing bigots that dominate the media will spin this into a political stunt done purely to knock Ted Anderson out of the race to become a Texas state senator. Even though his extremist views alone should make him unqualified to represent us in Austin. Why the fuck did you elect him as mayor to begin with?
I can't speak for anyone else, but I actually knew Ted Anderson from my childhood. We grew up in the same place and had the same values and culture, or so I thought. But as a teen he began hanging out with Leonard Wilson, who was also born and raised in this town. And Leonard and Simon Wilson's father founded this hospital and was one of the most powerful men in the town. My father was both a powerful man and one dedicated to serving the community. It seems my brother and Ted Anderson as adults craved power while not wanting to serve others, while I and Dr. Drake were the opposite. We made the mistake of assuming that my brother and Ted Anderson were like us because we had known them all our lives. We were wrong. Mrs. Smith, you may no longer be mayor of this town, but as far as I'm concerned you are still our fearless leader. And with all the evidence and testimony you and others have gathered over the past couple of weeks, I think we can move forward with criminal charges against Ted Anderson. Let's take that bastard down. Now.
Very well. Go pick him up. What about Leonard Wilson? He no longer lives here, so he is outside our jurisdiction.
I have spoken with the head of the Texas Rangers. They have agreed to arrest Leonard Wilson for us.
I assume you don't mean the baseball team?
Mr. Leonard Wilson, we have a warrant for your arrest. Arrest? On what charge? Conspiracy to destroy public property, namely, the sewage treatment system of the town you used to live in. Oh, and I must serve you this. I'm being sued for $100 million as well? Welcome back to town, Leonard. It looks like we are both facing the same charges. But how did anyone find out what we did? That was supposed to be a closely guarded secret. I guess we will find out when we go to trial.
As news of the arrests of Leonard Wilson and Ted Anderson spreads, right-wing extremists blow up social media about it. It's obvious why this is happening. Sandy Smith knows she can't win in a fair election, so this is her way of knocking her opponent, Ted Anderson, out of the race.
Of course. And the fact that the courts are letting her do this is a clear sign that they are still too liberal. We must vote for more people like Ted Anderson.
Yeah, and we must lock up that bitch Sandy Smith herself.
Lock her up. Lock her up. Lock her up.
Meanwhile, Sandy Smith meets with Leonard Wilson.
I assume you have clear evidence against me, so what can I offer you to settle this civil case quietly and get the criminal charges dropped as well?
Absolutely nothing. I am determined to take this to trial because I want to make a public case of it. I want everyone to know what you did. People died because of you and others were forced into bankruptcy even if they survived. It's time for you and Ted Anderson to take responsibility for your grossly unethical deeds.
And speaking of Ted Anderson, he is being made to face his own consequences.
My darling, it's good to see you here.
You bastard. I actually came here to give you this.
Divorce papers? Why?
When I married you 40 years ago, it was because I believed you were a good Christian man. But you turned out to be one of the world's biggest hypocrites. And because I as a submissive wife allowed you to make all the decisions regarding the upbringing of our son George, you corrupted him too. He is now in prison because of what you taught him, and I've been secretly working to undo the damage you did to his mind. And now he and I both agree that you belong in prison too. He was the one who ratted you and Leonard out.
Oh, my God.
At last, Leonard Wilson and Ted Anderson are brought to trial. And Sandy Smith leads the charge against them.
As a representative of the people of my town, I will prove that Leonard Wilson in a conspiracy with Ted Anderson sabotaged the town's sewage treatment system to increase the profits of the privately owned local hospital. As mayor, Ted Anderson did other policies to increase the profits of a tire company and a bottled water company that both he and Mr. Wilson owned stock in. They are multimillionaires, and most of their money came from the suffering of their own people.
Thank you, Mrs. Smith. I have accepted the financial records you have submitted of the hospital and of both Ted Anderson and Leonard Wilson. Now call your first witness.
I call Carrie Sims to the stand.
Carrie Sims proceeds to testify.
I moved to this town in October of 2020. About a month later, I got sick to my stomach, with constant vomiting that left me dehydrated. As a result, I went to hospital and was diagnosed with the kind of illness that one can get from drinking from a badly polluted river. But I was drinking tap water. It should have been clean. I spent over a week in the hospital struggling to recover, and my Thanksgiving that year was ruined. If my grandmother in Boston had not sent my mother's money to help pay for my hospital bills, we'd have gone bankrupt by Christmas. Carrie was absent from school, and a rumor spread that she and her mothers had already left the town to return to Boston. Some even said they were glad she was gone. I only found out the truth later. After that, I vowed to support her, no matter what, and never believe what others said about her and her mothers without going directly to them to learn the truth.
Next to testify is Simon Wilson. My father was the founder of the hospital, and after he died, I and my brother inherited it as co-owners. Later, we sold a portion of the hospital to Reverend Dave Owen, and he was forced to return it to us after he was convicted of arson of a church he had once been pastor of. I did notice the hospital's profits had increased dramatically after the year 2020, but I was too involved in teaching science at the local high school to pay much attention to the matter. I guess it never occurred to me how much things were being manipulated behind the scenes. I didn't cause all those illnesses and injuries that happened while Ted Anderson was mayor, but I accept the blame for looking the other way due to my ignorance. My work schedule often became overloaded due to so many becoming ill because of contaminated drinking water. It affected the quality of our work at the hospital, even to the point of turning away a few patients that would die later of various causes. That is something I will regret to the end of my life. One of the reasons I so strongly supported Sandy Smith when she was mayor was that she fixed all the problems that were making people sick and injured. She repaired all the roads and the sewage treatment system. Everyone in the town began having easier and safer lives due to her. And finally, the star witness takes the stand.
Yes, it was I, George Anderson, that sabotaged the sewage treatment system at my father's command about 3 years after he became mayor of our town. He paid me $10,000 for that act. My father also promised to make me a police officer, and later he even made me police chief. I never questioned his orders as mayor, because even as a father he ruled the household with an iron fist, and never allowed me or others to question his desires. And I grew up seeing Leonard Wilson so often at my home that I thought of him as my uncle. My parents took me to church every Sunday, and there I was taught to obey the pastor and obey my parents without question. And thus as police chief I enforced that same attitude of absolute obedience unto my subordinates. After I was sent to prison, I realized that the values I'd been brought up with were not Christian at all. They were fascist. My father had brainwashed me, and so my mother had to teach me different lessons in the many letters she sent me and the talks we had when she would visit me. And so I changed. I accept my punishment for what I did, but it is time for my father and Leonard Wilson to pony up too, because I never would have done a lot of the things I did as a cop if not for them, including that arson attempt at the Tuscany Tavern.
Thank you, son. I am proud of you now.
Finally, it is time for a judgment to be made.
Members of the jury, have you reached a verdict in this case?
We have, Your Honor. On the charge of conspiracy to destroy public property, we find both Ted Anderson and Leonard Wilson guilty.
Thank you, members of the jury. Ted Anderson and Leonard Wilson, you are both hereby sentenced to 10 years in a state prison, and you will also be fined $100 million each to be paid to the many victims listed in the civil action filed against you by Sandy Smith. Of course, no amount of money can compensate the families of those who died in this case, but it is still fitting that your fortunes be wiped out considering how you got most of them. And so this case is concluded.